right. Looks like we are live now. Well, hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our first episode of the 2025 Silverton Speaker Series. I'm Corey Knight, Director of Sales Training Development here at Silverton Mortgage, and I have the pleasure of hosting this session. And I'm delighted to introduce to you our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Seth Hickerson. And I can tell you right now, I'm very excited about this because our dry run the other day, it blew my mind. And so let me finish the intro because I'm getting ahead of myself because again, I'm excited. But Dr. Hickerson is a cognitive fitness pioneer and the founder of a revolutionary emotional intelligence training system that has helped some of the most high-performing individuals and teams around the world, from professional athletes, Navy SEALs, NASA engineers, and Fortune 500 executives. His work in emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and resiliency has made him a sought-after coach and educator for those working in high-stress environments. With over 20 years of experience in mental fitness, he's helped thousands of people stay focused, calm, and in control when the pressure is on. Today, he's here to share his insight on managing stress, sharpening our focus, and ultimately thriving during even the most intense closing situations. Dr. Hickerson, it's a pleasure to have you with us here today. And real quick, before we dive into the session, I do need to lay a little groundwork. The opinions and interpretations rendered are solely those of Dr. Hickerson and do not necessarily reflect the position of Silverton Mortgage. This session will last approximately 30 to 45 minutes. And if you have any questions, please use the Q&A button to ask your question. We have staff monitoring and collecting your questions throughout the session so we could do a Q&A with Dr. Hickerson at the end. We're recording this session will be available on Silverton Mortgage LinkedIn page and silvertonmortgage.com speaker series for future viewing. Now I am ready to dive into the meat and potatoes of today because, again, when you and I went through it, you really laid the groundwork. So now my head is buzzing even more. But let's talk about building mental fitness. The first thing we have to, I guess, give it a definition. So could you talk about what is building mental fitness? Because I know you talked about all the different types, but what's different and really what makes it unique that you do?
Yeah, and thanks for having me. I'm always grateful to be here and get to kind of spread the word and raise awareness around mental fitness training and how it can help people, personally and professionally. And so really the easiest way that I explain it is, when we think about, so I'm a sports psychologist too. I don't know if people out there, just so credential wise, a lot of what my training is grounded in is in sports psychology and high performance mental training, mental fitness. So mental fitness is really learning exercises and techniques to train your brain, like we do physical training for our body, right? So if my body was out of shape and deconditioned, I can't read a self-help book and get fit. I can't listen to a podcast and my body gets better. I have to go to the gym and do the exercises. And so our brains are the same way. Most of our brains out there right now are, pretty fitness is learning techniques, biohacking techniques, visualization techniques those are like your squats and your dumbbells, and you create routines that help build back up your cognitive endurance and capacity for focus and things like that, more mental energy. And so it's brain training is essentially it, learning tips and routines that you can implement into your life to help improve your clarity and energy and all that stuff that we're pretty desperate for.
Okay. Now you said when we talked earlier, you mentioned that this is probably one of the most neglected things that we as humans do. And you talked about podcasts and books and stuff. Can you kind of dive back into that and really kind of where it's great for, but what you need is the foundation?
Yeah, and so mental fitness training is something that most people out there in our country have never had access to. There's motivational speakers and life coaches and all that stuff, which is good, but you'll hear me say the word training a bunch. This is training, and it's learning techniques and exercises that are grounded in neuroscience and psychology, right? And so when you think about so I bring it back to like physical health. And so there's physical health training and physical, right? So the purpose is I should work out daily, do exercising of some kind so that I have good physical health and good physical energy. And then if I break my leg, I go get treatment. Right? That's how health works. But the goal is to do these daily routines of physical exercise so I have good physical health and energy. Well, mental health is the same way. But so in mental health, there's mental health training and there's mental health treatment. But in our country, and so my doctorate's in educational leadership, and this is a product of our society and what we know and don't know and what we're taught. When it comes to mental health, all our country knows is really mental illness. That's why it's stigmatic. That's why nobody wants to talk about it.
Mm.
When we hear mental health, we think suicide, depression, anxiety, right? So mental fitness training is the proactive side of it. And so when you look at the landscape of mental health, what most people think of is like clinical counseling, behavioral psychology, which are good, but that's really designed to diagnose and treat mental illness. Sports psych is on the proactive side, and we do training. And so it's what most people are doing, to your point, and it's probably a lot of your listeners. A lot of people are struggling out there. We're tired, we're exhausted, we're pissed off, we're not accomplishing goals. And motivated people, like I'm sure your listeners are, what a lot of them are doing is they're trying to figure out how to get better, but they're what we've conditioned people to do is just stream and consume a ton of content. So they're reading a bunch of self-help books, they're listening to a bunch of podcasts, they're watching a bunch of different videos, hoping something sticks. I'll hear that one Joe Rogan podcast and it'll transform my life. And I'm like, no, it
Yeah.
won't. No, it won't. It's the same as physical fitness. You can listen to all the podcasts you want. Streaming and consuming is not training. And so that's where I say it's good to have that awareness, but you need application. And that's what we do. I come in and I'm like, all right, hey, hit the pause button on all the self-help books and podcasts, learn how to train mentally, and
Mhm.
then you'll be in a better position to know how to utilize content.
Okay. So let's talk about why do you need mental fitness and kind of how does it apply to our everyday lives? Because everyone on here is probably commission sales, which is,
Mhm.
you have to hunt and kill what you eat.
Mhm.
Otherwise you don't. And so
Right.
there's that pressure being on, especially as you know, with the real estate and marketplace, everything like that. We're not in the blooming season of it. And
Mm-mm.
so like when you talk about building this up, what is it to help you do? Because I know you really, when you said that foundation, it allows you to take things on. So
Yep.
in building that, and kind of what are the common barriers people face that they need this mental fitness in order to
Yep.
break
Right.
through that barrier?
Yeah. And so, it's like who needs it? Everybody that has a brain, right? I mean, this is what I tell people, your mind controls your body, your mind controls everything, and most people have no awareness or control over their mind. So they have a lot of, and it's not that people are bad, they just don't know. And so there's a lot of, especially post-COVID, unsteady minds out there. So that's
Mhm.
people that are burned out, tired, pissed off, agitated, just feel like I can't get ahead. And what it leads to, the ultimate thing that inhibits a person's ability to succeed in life, personally or professionally, is it creates conscious and subconscious self-sabotaging behavior. And it's the self-sabotaging stuff, especially in sales and high pressure sales, that causes us to, screw up a deal or miss a lead or do whatever the case is. And so what mental fitness training is doing is teaching us how to steady our minds and slow things down, so that we can be calm in chaos or present, and we can handle stressful situations with more mental energy and resilience and things like that.
Okay, so with that being said, what is like the first thing they should do in order to kind of establish where is my mental fitness level and where do I need to work? What's
Mhm.
like number one step in order to
Right,
get moving forward down
right.
this mental fitness journey?
So the first thing I tell everybody is give yourself some space and grace. If you feel like you're struggling with
Mhm.
it, you're not alone, right? You're not alone. I don't
Right,
care what industry you're in. All of us out there are struggling with something, whether it's stress, burnout, fear, exhaustion, negative self-talk, right? So you're not alone in it. So
right.
just give yourself some space and grace. And then it's like every other training program. The first thing you need to do is kind of figure out, what I do again, it's training, not treatment. I'm not diagnosing people with things, but we have an assessment people can take and it'll help you kind of get a baseline as to what you need to work on. Is it gratitude or presence or focus? So first, and you don't have to do that assessment, but first just understand if I'm struggling, it's okay. It's not your fault. It's probably, you haven't had these tools.
Mhm.
And then it's about starting to learn, and I'm sure we'll get to this. There's two things that control everything in a person's life. And the two things most people have no awareness or control over, especially if it's getting stressful or full of pressure, and it's your thoughts and your breath. Your
Yeah.
thoughts control your mind, and your breath controls your nervous system. And so that's everything I teach, is teaching people to just start to have techniques to control my thoughts, especially if I'm stressed or scared or
Mhm.
and then how do I control my breath, which controls my nervous system,
Okay.
you
So
know?
real quick, if you can you name like the assessment you give, you kind of the all the points, the I know you mentioned just a couple of them, all the points that you test for, because some of them really surprised me on what you assess for. So do you mind
Mhm.
naming all the different things your
Yeah.
assessment, looks
Yeah,
for?
sure. And again, that one of the things with mental training, why a lot of people can't wrap their mind around it, pun intended, right? Is because I
Mhm.
can't see my brain.
Yeah.
I can see, because it has a skull around it. So I can see my body and see that, oh, I'm in shape or I'm out of shape or whatever, or this workout's working or it's not. Well, our brain has a skull around it. It doesn't grow like the biceps. And so it's hard for people to grasp, like, what's it mean to improve my brain. So really when it comes to, there's skills. So we all have emotional skills that are very important in our life. And that's what our assessment measures. And the 6 domains that we assess and then train on are resilience, presence, focus, confidence, gratitude, and emotional intelligence. And you can think about how important all of those are, especially in, like I said, the real estate and finance and mortgage industry, where there's a lot of emotion and stress and uncertainty. We want you to learn how to be present, be where
Mhm.
your feet are, especially when things are getting tight. I want you to be able to be resilient. How do I bounce back from all the no's or the broken deals or whatever? How do I be grateful when I feel like there's nothing to be grateful for? And what I help people understand is that those are skills. You can't just come
Right.
up to somebody and be like, "Hey, Corey, just be grateful." And then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, thanks. Now I'm grateful for we have to rewire your brain through neuroplasticity and brain training because you have a negativity bias.
Right.
And so that's what I help people understand. And it moves all this mental stuff out of the like vague, ambiguous world into very practical, tactical strategies that I can start to improve to help me personally and professionally. But yeah, those are the 6 domains, and emotional intelligence being the ultimate superpower.
Right. Well, one thing, like we talked before, I loved was the gratitude part is something that we forget a lot. And like I make my we make my wife and I make our kids every night. We have to say something they're thankful before they go to bed, something they're thankful for, because you talked about it before that we are such consumer of we're in our phones or all this stuff where everybody has something and we don't.
Right.
And so that gratitude part, could you go back to where
Yeah.
you can't have the two live in the same space?
Yeah, you can't. And again, I always want to know. I teach people like practical applications and understanding. And I'm ex-military, so I use terms like tactical and deploy. And I want people to learn. So everybody on this call, every human on planet Earth right now, our brains are wired with a negativity bias. It's a survival mechanism. None of us wake up in the morning and start looking for good news. We just don't. We're looking for threats, right?
Right.
That's why there's not good news stations, because nobody cares. Nobody's going to watch it. And so the way our brain works, this is why gratitude is so hard. We have this negativity bias. And so we're kind of always on the lookout for negative stuff, and negative stuff really gets our attention and sticks. And then the way our brain works is if I don't see or I'm not around it, I'll start making it up through negative self-talk and negative stories. And so it's not, I tell people, it's not a reflection of you being a bad person. It's just how an unchecked brain will work. So we have to practice techniques. We have to develop the skill of gratitude, and especially in the moment, because you're never going to get rid of the negativity bias. You don't want to. It's a survival mechanism. But we
Right.
just want to not be consumed by it. And so an example of how I use and deploy the skill of gratitude is, I'm a single dad. I've got 3 boys. I got an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old. And life can be chaotic, and crazy. And so kind of a real world example of what it means to like deploy the skill of gratitude. I always call it firing off a gratitude rep, right? Because you can't have a negative thought and a positive thought at the same time. It's impossible,
Mhm.
right? So if
Right.
I'm driving my car and I'm driving my kids to school, and I'm ready for a good day or whatever, and then my boys start going crazy in the back like they'll do, maybe one of them pinched the other one and now they're screaming and crying, right? So I'm driving, that's a stimulus, and if I don't have any awareness or tools, I'll react, right? I get mad and I turn around and I scream and I yell at my kids, and now they're crying more and I'm pissed off and I'm dropping them off at the school line and the teacher's like, what the hell happened in there? And then and now my day's kind of ruined. I'm like, damn, I can't believe I did that. And I'm thinking about it and my kids are upset, right? Because I didn't know how, I didn't have awareness and know how to use a technique to create space, pause between that stimulus and a thought. So if I rewind it, and now I'm driving to school and the kids start doing their thing and fighting. I can't control that that happened, right? So
Right.
now I have awareness that that's going on, but I take, a breath or something to the BAMO breath, which we'll probably teach. I create a little space and then I deploy gratitude, meaning my initial thoughts are, I wish these kids would shut the hell up. And every
Right.
fabric in my body wants to turn around and scream. But
Mhm.
what I do is I say things in my head. I'm grateful for those kids. I'm grateful to be a dad. How lucky am I to have 3 boys to drive to school? Right. And so this is all happening within a matter of seconds, but it's
Mhm.
reframing my thoughts. And then that de escalates me, and because I deployed that gratitude, now I respond. I can turn around and just be like, "Hey, boys, let's keep it down." Right.
Right.
And I de-escalated the situation without it turning in. But it was, I had to have that awareness and a technique to create that spot, that pause between what was pissing me off and what I wanted to do. But I
Right.
had to, right. And so that's just like an example of how you utilize the skill of gratitude, and you'll have 1,000 opportunities a day to do that.
Well, that's fantastic because that segues to the next part, which is this resilience. So you just talked about having that moment, the resilience under pressure, and I mean with you working with Navy SEALs and NASA, and these are high. I mean, I can't imagine the mindset of some of these people, like especially the SEALs. You hear in the stories. I actually got to hear from the Benghazi thing, Tonto. I got to hear him speak live one time, and
Yeah.
how he's sitting there and he goes, nothing's more adrenaline surging than hear a bullet buzz past you and break the sound barrier. And I'm
Yeah.
going like,
It'll
how's he do
it'll
it?
get
But
your
yeah,
attention. Yeah.
but he was in the zone doing what he needed to do. And
Right.
so, for us, like you said, we wake up with the negativity. We're like, the rates are high, values are high, mortgage is slow. And so we wake up going, I have to go battle this every day rather than guess what? I get to do what I do and I get to help put
Mhm.
people in, which is gratitude. So this resilience under pressure, you mentioned BAMO, which to me was a game changer, and I've
Mhm.
already had to kind of self-discipline because I had a couple seasons where I got moments over the last 24 or 48 hours where I was like, I didn't BAMO when I should have
Breathe.
BAMOed at that moment.
Mhm.
So can you go ahead and talk about this resilience under pressure and kind
Yeah.
of the tactics that you teach people in order
Mhm.
to help take that moment so you're not
Right.
yelling at your kids in the back?
Yeah. Yeah. And so again, like the folks I train, they live and work in very stressful, high stakes, life and death environments, right? A lot of emotion. And this is what I tell people, what is kind of counterintuitive to the culture that we live in
Mhm.
is what they all have the ability to do. And it's because they train mentally. And this is what I tell everybody is slow down, right? We live in this world where I get up like I'm shot out of a cannon, checking my emails, running around, checking this, doing that, doing this. And we're in this sympathetic state. And like you said, it feels like everything's up against me and I'm battling all day. And it's just, that's exhausting and
Mhm.
tiring. And it makes me feel vulnerable. And that's what leads to poor mental energy, reactive behavior, shitty decision makings, burnout, right? And that's
Mhm.
how most people, especially when you live and work in a sales industry, and that is super inefficient, right? We
Right.
wear this in our country. People think like busyness is a badge of honor. Well, in the high performance community, it's not. As soon as I meet somebody and I'm like, "How you doing?" They're like, "Oh man, I'm just so busy." I instantly know that they don't know how to manage their time. They're not efficient. So it's learning, that the slowest moving people on planet Earth that I train are my SEALs. They do
Wow.
everything slow. They talk slow, they move slow, they think slow. And that doesn't just happen. That's what I come to say. And span like NASA and people, you have to
Mhm.
learn how to slow down, and then routines get results. And how they're able to slow down is they train mentally. So, and that means they do routines in the morning, meditation, breath work,
Mhm.
visualization, right? We call them an ECR. You have to have a morning routine, and mental training's 5 minutes a day. This is
Wow.
quick. It's not about, because people will say, "I'll Seth, you don't understand. I'm so busy. I don't have time to take a cold bath and an ice plunge and meditate." I'm like, get off Instagram. That's not mental training, right?
Yeah.
Mental training is about it's not about intensity and duration. It's about intention and consistency. And so it's about when I wake up tomorrow and every fabric of my body wants to just go and hustle and grind, right? Check my phone is like, how do I give myself permission to slow down for 2 minutes and take a few breaths, right? Maybe do a little gratitude, some, right? It's just me intentionally saying, I'm not going to just jump in. I say, if you want to win the day, you have to win the morning. And you have to do something that gets you in this flow state. So coming back to the big thing, what you're doing from a performance perspective, what I train and what mental fitness training does is it trains people how to recondition their brain and their nervous system so that they live in flow state or the zone. That's where ultimate performance is when a person is in the zone, which is relaxed awareness. So when my cops and surgeon or SEAL, when they're out in a gunfight, they're calm, they're relaxed, they're in the zone, right? And
Right.
and so if you're an agent and you want to go do a high pressure, high stakes deal, I don't want you to be agitated and irritated and burnt out. And I want you to come in there and be calm and confident, and that doesn't, and the thing I tell everybody is that does not just happen. And
Right.
you know what I mean? We have to rewire your brain to so that you can be calm in chaos or unethwithable.
Right.
That's what we teach people, right? How do I become unethwithable? Meaning I can walk out into this world and it doesn't matter what goes down. I'm cool. I'm calm.
That's fantastic because I know I'm guilty of many times hopping into conversations, and I'm sure there's probably people on this call that go, "Yeah, Corey, you hop in," and I hit them 100 miles an hour,
Right.
and they're like, "Hold on," and next thing I know, I have to stop. They make me stop because they go, "We have no idea what just happened.
Mm-mm.
We know you know you're talking, but you were not communicating."
Mm-mm.
And to do that, and then those pressure moments, whether it's like, again, it could be where I'm trying to close a transaction for us, or sometimes it's when my 15-year-old says one thing and
Mm-mm.
boom, and then how
Yeah.
do what's that, if you could you mentioned it earlier in the call, the BAMO, and that is, like, for me, that was like one of the biggest game changers that we talked about, was
Yeah.
have identifying that moment, and to help with that resilience, because like you said, to build that tradition in the morning of having that moment to do, which everyone needs to do. But then when you recognize it, could you talk through the BAMO? I know you have the
Yeah.
tattoo. Feel free to
Yeah, I'll
show
put it
them
in the summer. Yeah.
about BAMO, explain
Yeah.
what that is, and kind of, if you want to
Yep.
walk us all through it so
Yeah, I'll walk
people
you through
can
it.
do,
Yep.
that'd be great.
So, yeah, and the whole thing again, and that's what it's like. Everything is about energy, emotion, energy and motion. And with leaders and parents and all that stuff, like, you introduce yourself with your energy before you open your mouth. And if
Right.
I'm a leader and I come in and I'm bouncing around and my energy's in sympathetic, like that's contagious and it makes people, right, even if what I'm saying is good, but they start to get in sympathetic state. And so it's learning how to slow down and control and be intentional before I walk into a room, whether it's with my 15-year-old daughter or my sales team or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And so how do we do that? So back to mental training. Mental training is all about techniques that help you develop awareness and control over your thoughts and your breath. Your thoughts control your mind, your breath controls your nervous system. So that's what we teach, techniques. And the first breath technique, and that's what I'll teach, that we teach people, and it's really our war cry at My Steady Mind, is called the BAMO breath. And BAMO means breathe and move on, right? And so it's
Mhm.
fun to say, it's sticky, and it's not just a breath, it's a call to action, right?
Right.
Move on, move on. And so what the BAMO breath is, and I'll lead everybody through one here, it's the fastest biohack. So if people have heard the term biohacking out there, you can biohack your thoughts and you can biohack your breath. So you have to learn techniques to biohack. And so the BAMO breath is a breath technique that is basically regulating your nervous system. So when I get
Mhm.
pissed off or anxious because the sale's going sideways or my 15-year-old daughter's pissing me off or whatever, I'm just laying in bed anxious. All it is my sympathetic nervous system is active. I'm in fight or flight because I'm perceiving something as a threat. That's
Okay.
it. And so your brain and body doesn't know that you're threatened by my 15-year-old daughter or a deal breaking down. It thinks there's rattlesnakes in bed with you. And so I go into
Right.
fight or flight and it's uncomfortable, right? So we want to take the BAMO breath, which is a 4-second inhale through the nose, counting, right? Because the counting serves a purpose. And then it's 4 seconds out of the mouth counting. So 4 seconds in through the nose, 4 seconds out of the mouth. And the counting, if I got a lot of negative, scary thoughts going on and self-talk, and I say BAMO, and then I count, it shuts off that noise, right?
Oh, wow.
And I'm breathing, and so you have to go for 4 seconds in, because you have to flip the switch from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. The rest in that's the parachute. The
Okay.
parachute's calming me down, so I have to flip the switch. And so we'll take it, and then again with BAMO, it's get back into the sales call, get back into the move on, right? So we'll do a BAMO breath. I'll count you through one, and then everybody can do one on their own, and just see how it feels, you know. So I don't know if it's safe. They can close their eyes if you're in a comfortable position, but just go ahead and shut your eyes. We'll do a BAMO breath. So inhale in through the nose, 2, 3, 4, out through the mouth. Really push it out. Open the mouth and exhale. 3, 4. Another one on your own. Exhale and push it out. All right. So hopefully that little breath, you felt it. You know, I don't know how stressed your viewers are right now, but if they are stressed and they did that, and it will, you know, it'll calm you down a little bit.
Tell us purpose behind the counting again, because you said that stops it, and just kind of so people understand that the importance of the counting.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, it's huge. Again, that's our thoughts, right? So if I'm sitting here and my thoughts are all over the place, right? Oh my God, that deal just went through. I'm never going to make any money. I'm going to lose my house. My family's falling apart, whatever, right? My brain going all over the place. And then I think BAMO, or say it even out loud, BAMO. And then I do the breath where I count 1, 2. When I'm counting for 4 seconds, I can't have all that other thinking. It shuts it off. You know, it's like a mute button for just 8 seconds. And so I'm shutting off all that scary language for 8 seconds, and I'm activating my parasympathetic nervous system. So I'm getting kind of double bang for, well, actually triple bang for your buck. I'm shutting off the scary noise, coming inward. I'm taking the breath, which is activating my nervous system. And then the move on is motivating me to get back into the task, the mission, the sell, right?
Right. Which, if you can talk about, I guess, which does segue into the next place, which is self-awareness and situational awareness. Those are two very different things. But with that, like with the exhale and that move on, it's about being present, which most of us are not. Could you go ahead and talk about being present, and then the dive into the self-awareness and situational awareness, and kind of how all that works, that for you and against you?
Yeah. And so the ultimate Jedi power that people are learning is emotional intelligence. You know, and that's what, and again, when you work in an industry like all your listeners, there's a lot of emotion. You know, you're dealing with people that are stressed, and it's a big decision and the biggest life decision they made. So there's all these emotions going on. And most people, not because they're bad, again, our society does not teach emotional intelligence in our schools. So most people aren't emotionally intelligent. Just because someone's nice does not mean they're emotionally intelligent, right? Emotional intelligence is a skill, and there's 4 components. And so these are the steps to becoming emotionally intelligent. And you have to get good at each one, right? So the first step is self-awareness. So I have to learn self-awareness means I have the ability to observe my emotions, not evaluate them, right?
Yeah, which is hard.
That's hard, right? Because that's what I want to do. I want to analyze and why am I so pissed off? Why am I so anxious? As soon as you start analyzing or evaluating an emotion, you're toast, right? So we want to learn how to observe it. So I say things like name it to tame it, right? If fear comes up, or anxiety or worry, I just name it. Oh, hey, fear, not right now. I'm busy. I'm with my kids. Oh, hi, anxiety. No, all right, now I'm getting ready to make a phone call, right? You start to learn how to note it and name it. There's a bunch of techniques, but it starts with self-awareness. You have to develop self-awareness. Step 2 is self-regulation. So that's the techniques. How do I regulate this uncomfortable emotion? Because what most people do is they suppress every emotion, right?
Right.
And I used to be just as guilty as everybody else. We're a nation of suppressors: drugs, alcohol, fighting, avoidance, whatever, right? And because you can only do 2 things with an emotion. You can manage it or suppress it. That's it, right? And so we have to learn how to manage it. So self-awareness, observing my emotions. Step 2, self-regulation, like the BAMO breath. That's an emotional regulation. And then you start to move into the Jedi skill. The Jedi skill is step 3, situational awareness. who am I around right now? Is it a potential client? Is it my 15-year-old daughter? Am I in a grocery store? You start to, as you get better at the first two steps, your intuition gets better and you start to be able to read other people's energy and emotions faster, right?
Okay.
And this is so
Mhm.
important, especially in high pressure deals and sales, is, I need to be able to read a room. I need to be able to read a person's energy and emotions. And then the magic Jedi superpower, step 4, which is situational regulation. So what techniques can I use to regulate somebody else's emotions when they don't know how to get them to do what I want them to do?
Right.
That's
Which,
that's the
which
ultimate, right?
you're right, because it's very interesting to sit there and do that. That sounds like a lot to wrap my head around. Like you said, you can't
Yeah,
wrap
yeah,
around because it's
yeah,
in there. But
yeah.
because you're looking at the people we're dealing with, everything's emotional. You have, the agent or the loan officer are both like, this is, I need to make this happen. You got the homeowner who's emotional because they're
Mhm.
transplanting their
Yep.
life,
Right.
and
And
if your energy goes
yeah.
out, you have to work their energy. So yeah. So I don't
So
know if you
I'll
could
give
kind
you,
of dive
yeah,
in.
yeah. And
Yeah.
because I always want to give people simple little things that they can
Hmm.
do to start working on it, right? And
Okay.
so for self-regulation, BAMO, right? So just
Hmm.
remember BAMO, practice BAMO. The more you practice it, don't just save it for when things are getting sideways, right? Like what I tell people practice it is like anchor it to something. Like every time I walk through a doorway, I take a BAMO breath. Every time I put my seatbelt on, I take a BAMO breath. Before I make a sales call, I take a BAMO breath. So it's helping you be more intentional, because that's the other big word. Most people move through their day with no intention. They're just kind of
Right.
flopping around, right? So slowing down, breathing, just integrating these little, I call them tactical pauses, right?
Hmm.
Just pausing a little bit, right? So anyway, for kind of the first two, self-awareness, self-regulation, use BAMO. And then for step 3 and 4, situational awareness and situational regulation, a technique for your thoughts that you can use. So all humans on planet Earth, we're all the same. We all have our same needs and wants, right? So every human has our basic needs: food, water, shelter. Well, every
Hmm.
human on planet Earth really has one basic want. And that want is, we want to feel, because we're emotional, we want to feel like we matter.
Right.
That's it. We just want to feel like we matter. So as you're talking to kids, family, clients or whatever, 99% of the time when somebody's pissed off or upset or mad, it's because someone or something made that person feel like they don't matter. Right.
Gotcha. Yes.
And
No.
so,
I
so,
agree.
so what we do as emotionally intelligent people to regulate that is, if somebody's coming off at me and going off and doing whatever, whether it's my wife complaining when she comes home, or a customer that's telling me about something that happened at the house, or somebody they dealt with, whatever, right? I don't just cut them off. I don't jump over the top. I sit there and I breathe and I let them do their thing. And then I visualize them wearing a shirt that says, I matter. So it's an
Okay.
external visualization
Hmm.
cue that it keeps me from cutting them off. It lets them talk, because that's how they're managing their emotions, by bitching or crying or venting.
Hmm.
That's their release, right? And my
Right.
job is to not take the bait and get in this tennis match of, and it's hard. You have to be disciplined. Let them sit there and do it and breathe, stay
Hmm.
calm, and then visualize them wearing a shirt that says, I matter. And that's my external cue, that when they get done talking or pissing and moaning or whatever,
Hmm.
I just need to say or do something that makes that person feel like they matter. And it's as simple as that. Hey, I want to let you know you matter. You matter to me. You matter to the firm. You matter to the
Hmm.
team, right? Use those words and watch how quickly people de escalate. And now I'm back in control of the situation.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's okay. I told you when we talked the other day that I'd learned something new this
Mm-hmm.
time, and that's, yeah, it's something else I get to take away, because so many times we don't. We just kind of go with the situation. We roll with it and
All right.
we react rather than,
React. Yeah. Right.
like you said, to
Yeah.
pause and then,
Yeah. Right.
intentfully
Yeah.
respond rather than
Yeah.
react.
And that's the whole secret, is we live in an unsteady world. Everybody's unsteady. Everybody you're dealing with, trying to sell stuff to, they're unsteady. They don't have this skill set, right? And so when you take
Right.
a society of people that are just living in this unsteadiness, trying to make deals and negotiate and close, the people that practice this are the steady ones
Right.
that are that calm in the eye, but again, that's where I keep coming back to, like, it's not going to just magically happen. You can go read all the self-help books you want about being emotionally intelligent.
Hmm.
You have to do the exercises to rewire your brain. And again, it's not a heavy lift. It's not hard, but it's about being intentional and because that's what you want to be. You want to be the calm in the storm. You want to be a relaxed badass.
Right. Which is good because especially as a parent, that's what we're kind of called to do. We're the ones that are supposed to do it. And sometimes I'm personally guilty of
Oh, me
being
too.
the
Yeah.
one that takes it from 0 to 60.
Yeah,
You know,
right. Yeah. And again, I teach people too. I'm just as guilty as everybody else because it's not about just like physical health, right? I get in seasons where I'm working out 4 or 5 days a week. And then there'll be a season where I don't go to the gym for a month, right?
Mhm.
Mental
Right.
training, this is a life skill. This is something, it's just learning routines. And I will still light my kids up. I will still blow up and react because it's not about perfection. It's about probability.
Right.
And so, I'm not trying to turn everybody in here into monks. I just don't want them to be monkeys, you know.
Right.
And so the whole thing that increases the probability that you're going to be able to move through your day staying calm is if you do your morning mental routine, right?
Okay. Absolutely.
That's the whole thing. And so I teach people like to kind of how I do mine, just to kind of give them an idea of like, okay, sounds good, but how do I do it? Right. You understand,
Mhm.
Seth, I'm busy. I got that, whatever. Right. So I'm busy too. So, but typically with me, just to kind of frame it for people is, I wake up, I got 3 kids. I get up at 6, and from 6 to 7:30, it's chaotic. I'm being dad, trying to find shoes and homework and make breakfast and get 3 boys ready under 11, ready and
Mhm.
out the door for school. But I'm breathing, I'm trying to keep my energy down and stay calm, because I've got some tools. But I'm dad from 6 to 7:30, and it can be exhausting and chaotic, and I can get pissed off and light them up. It happens. But then
Mhm.
I drop my kids off at school at 8 a.m. And then in my car, after I drop them off, is when I start my morning mental routine in my car, right? So
Mhm.
I don't just go from the chaos of the morning to the chaos of the workday. I sit in my car, and my 3 things: I pray, I meditate, and I do a gratitude journal. So it's that little deliberate pause between the chaoses where I get to sit and refill, and I can feel it. I'm refilling my mental energy.
Mhm.
I'm setting my intention. It's like I'm putting on this emotional super cape, right? And
Right.
now I'm reset. Now I can begin my day. And that zen, that flow state might last 2 or 3 hours, or it might last 2 or 3 seconds, depending on the first email I get. you know, and
Right.
and and so then it's, I set myself, I do it, but then as the day goes on, whatever throws at me, I'm going to get unsteady. And that's when we call them IERs, intermittent energy renewals, like the BAMO breath, quick
Right.
hitting techniques that bring me back to steady as things. And so you do that little morning routine, you do your IERs. The more you do those, the more consistently through the process of neuroplasticity, you recondition your brain and your body to where you just start to live in this kind of flow state.
It's fantastic because really, what's funny is you just went to our fourth point where what were the practical tools for everyday stress, which you just went through and kind of captured is that time in the morning. Because one thing I've done since we talked about this the other day is I already have my morning time. I get up before, like, as the first one wakes up, which I'm the same at 6 a.m. because I got 4 to get out and they go to 4 different schools.
Oh
And
man.
so,
Yeah.
which is 4 different times.
Yeah.
And so, but I get my time, I have to do my time right away because I realize that I've got to take my breaths before because I do have a 15-year-old daughter who right now is going through everything under the sun, and she wakes
Yeah.
up every morning and she's angry.
Yeah.
And I said,
Yeah.
what are you so
Yeah.
upset about? She has no idea why. She just
Oh,
knows
right.
she's upset.
Right.
But
Right.
my problem is I tended to react. So over the last 2 days, after going through, I'm like, okay, let me take my Bama breaths because I can hear
Yeah.
when she comes down the stairs because the
Yeah.
stairs take the beating, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she
Boom,
comes
boom,
in, and
boom.
I've always make sure before, even if she something I need to do right away, stop. Morning, baby. How are you? How you
Yeah.
doing? Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on. Is the breakfast ready? Hey, whatever you need, let's go. So it's great. So could you just walk through those tools again one more time of just kind of how to start and then go through just to kind of
Yeah.
recapture that?
Yeah. What I'll tell you, because I'm all about routines, simple
Mhm.
routines that you can implement, right? And some people
Mhm.
out there may have some routines that they're doing, and that's great, and keep it up, and some may not. But I want to help people understand, again, this isn't a big heavy lift to start to implement. It's the most important thing is about being intentional about what I'm doing and why,
Mhm.
right? So it can be as simple as when you wake up tomorrow morning, right? And your eyes open. Well, a lot of us have that urge to just grab my phone and get up and what's going on with it, right? Just lay there in bed and just take a few Bama breaths,
Mhm.
right? Just kind of and be intentional about why you're doing it. Okay, I'm kind of just getting myself regulated. I'm getting myself in this flow state, right? And then so I'll give people a quick little like, because it's all about health and energy, and there's four
Mhm.
pillars of health that we're trying to really protect that activate our energy for the day. And so a real simple morning routine that people can do is, if when you wake up tomorrow morning, do 3 or 4 BAMO breaths. That's checking your mental health box, right? And
Mhm.
then if you want, get on your knees, pray to something. If you believe in something, there's spiritual health that you can get, right? And then go, and then you can maybe do like 5 squats or 5 push-ups. You don't have to go to the gym and work out for 2 hours, right? It's
Mhm.
the intention. I'm just going to stretch a little bit, do 5 push-ups, and then drink, 8 ounces of water. Like if you do that little routine, few BAMO breaths, maybe say a prayer, even laying in bed, stretch, go drink a little water, you've activated your 4 pillars of health, and it sets you up with some intentionality for the day, that now when my daughter comes banging down the steps, I'm not as likely to go off on her had I just woken up and been checking emails, and now she comes down and I'm, you know, and
Right.
so, but it's just, carve out that little time to take a few breaths, and have the intention of why I'm doing it. And another big word I do, another thing I teach is be intentional and what set an intention for the day, which means like when you wake up tomorrow morning, just lay there and say, may I be kind
Right.
today. May I be relaxed. Just speak that word out,
Mhm.
and it becomes kind of a North Star for your day. And so when that daughter comes down and she's doing her thing, you've
Right.
kind of planted that seed, and you might approach it with some kindness or compassion.
Well, I've definitely worked on that, and I've been doing better ever since. I can say that because she's going through a lot, and I was probably the same way when I was her age. And it's just a
Yeah, I mean,
matter of
one of my
going through.
sayings, I have a ton of sayings and slogans and mantras that I use. Again, being a dad with 3 boys, and I say my job. Again, I'm not a perfect dad, but I'm a present dad.
Mm.
And I really work
Right.
hard on being present with my kids when I'm at their games, when I'm at their things. But the other thing my kind of thing I tell myself is, my job as a parent isn't to give my kids what they never got. It's to teach my kids what they were never taught,
Ah,
what
that's
I was never taught, right?
right.
And so this is stuff I wasn't taught, and
Mhm.
so that's I have to teach it. My kids meditate, they do breath work. We
Mhm.
talk about self-talk, we talk about visualization, and so I make it kind of a part of our what we do. But you have to make it cool and fun, and you know,
Right. Oh yeah.
you know, and
Otherwise, we're doing dorky dad stuff, right?
yeah, yeah. And I'll teach, I don't know, for kids out there too, because we're going to launch our mental fitness for kids course in May. But so again, the whole thing is if you want people to do this, like your kids, especially, you have to hide the medicine in the cheese.
Yeah.
You
Oh
can't
yeah.
wait for your kid to have a meltdown and try to teach them the BAMO breath. That's
Right.
not going to work, right? They're going to associate that with this pain. So what you do is if you've got kids, especially like 12 or under, this is an example of what I do with my boys when they were like 5 and 6 and 7. We'd be sitting around on a Saturday while I'm folding laundry and there's nothing going on. We're just hanging out. And I'd be like, all right, hey kids, we're going to play a game, right? And it's called Smell the Roses and Blow Out the Candles. And we're going to when I say smell the roses, everybody's going to breathe in as much as they can and try to smell the roses. And then when I say blow out the candles, blow out the candles. We'll see who can blow. And I just tell them, I don't say it has to do with mental health or
Right.
stress, or it's just a game. And so all right, let's go. And we do it. We do that 2 or 3 times. And then I just, well, that was fun. And I go back to folding laundry. Right.
Mhm.
But I do that game 3 or 4 times over 3 or 4 weeks. And what it's conditioning them to do is now when I'm in my car and I'm driving, and my kids start having a meltdown, I just turn around and go, smell the roses. And they instinctively take a breath
And they calm down.
and they calm down. Right.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, you gave us a lot, and I just realized we kind of went a little bit longer because the information is good, but I do want to open it up to Q&A. So for those of you that have your questions, which if you're like me, I have like 10 million of them, but if you guys drop your questions in the Q&A, so Dr. Hickerson can answer them for you on these tactics, because some of y'all are probably trying to wrap your mind around everything that just happened. But first one, what are some effective ways to handle rejection or difficult interactions without letting affect your confidence?
hmm So we use the good technique. So when
Okay.
I get hit, when somebody in Jocko Willick, former SEAL out there. So
Mhm.
what that means is when somebody tells me no or bad news, what it means is like, let that hit for a minute and fight the tendency to just snap. And if you say the word good in your head, like good, Like if they say, hey, the deal didn't come through. And if you think good or say good, it just creates a little space. And then in your brain, if you can start to try to think of what is the good in it, it's
Hmm.
amazing how fast you'll switch from feeling very vulnerable to almost empowered. And your brain will start thinking about things that can overcome that, right? It'll come up with solutions. That's how amazing our brain is once we learn how to flip the kind of the input, and
Okay.
so that's, but it's just thinking. I do it all the time. I'll get an email that sucks and says something didn't come through. And yes, it's not this toxic positivity, but if I think good, and then I look back at the email and I say, what is the good in that? What's the opportunity that can come out of this? You know,
That's fantastic. That got learned yet something else. What other questions do you have out there? So we have, oh, hold on, let me. Do you have recommendations to help set boundaries with clients and still maintain strong relationships?
to set boundaries with
Hmm.
clients. I think that with boundaries, the first thing is kind of getting comfortable saying no to people.
Hmm.
We live in a yes, 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 yes. And again, it all comes to slowing down. Like
Hmm.
it sounds super, right? Simple, but if you can learn how to slow down and move through your day with intention, it'll help you have more awareness of how to set boundaries with people or tell people no and
Hmm.
not be afraid, to piss somebody off. I mean, it's because what happens a lot of people respect it when you're like, hey man, I'd love to do this, but I can't do XYZ or whatever it is. But it takes practice, but slow down and just communicate. Tell people what you can do, you can't do, and you don't have to come off as being brash, but you know, um, boundaries they're hard, but once you start learning how to do it, and it gets a little easier. And
Yeah,
people
yeah,
respect them. People respect them.
I agree. Because otherwise, without boundaries, they will set your boundaries.
That's
Yeah,
right. I mean, we've
totally.
we've gotten ourselves into the situations we're in, and that's part of this whole super connected world that we live in, where people just think I should be on and available 24/7. And
Hmm.
if that's the message you send, then I try to make myself, make yourself very valuable, then make yourself very limited.
Right. Okay. Next one is, what advice do you have for managing stress during busy seasons without burning out?
Managing stress. I mean, one of the things that I'll do. I mean, it's a lot of it's routines. I say
Hmm.
that 1,000 times. If you don't have any decent little routines, then nothing matters. So it's learning that, okay, if you know when your busy season is, and typical stressors for it, what are things you can start to do? Like if you start to implement some of this mental training stuff
Hmm.
into your daily routine, whether it's a busy season or non-busy season, you're going to be managing stress better. If you learn some of this basic stuff like breath work, gratitude journals, try some of these exercise. God, if you could all start practicing meditation, that's a game changer. And so we kind of look at it as this very like, what do I do when this happens?
Hmm.
And I don't want you to look at it that way. I just want you to do this today because that's going to happen.
And you're more preparing yourself
You're
for it
more
to happen
prepared.
rather
Yeah,
than
right.
trying to handle it
Just
when
get
it's
up.
there.
That's what I say. Because people have this mindset of, it's like, because we have a reactive mindset. Oh, when these 3 months come, that's my busy season and it's stressful. So during that 3 months, I'm going to do X, Y, Z to mitigate against it.
Hmm.
That's not the right approach, right? The right approach is, those may be 9 months away, but I'm doing today the things that are going to mitigate when that time comes. Does that make sense? So it's just,
Absolutely.
that's the steady mind concept. Like the people I train that are in the zone and flow state, they don't just get in the zone before a mission. They don't just get in flow state in a game. They're in the zone eating breakfast with their daughter
Right.
because they got up and did their mental fitness routine. They live in the zone. It doesn't matter what season it is. That's the difference.
That's fantastic, because really you take a look at that with our physical health too. Because so many of us, okay, guess what? Summer's coming. I got to quick start eating better, start working out
Yeah,
again. Rather
yeah.
than if we did it all year, you're
It's
ready for summer.
Yeah,
It's there.
yeah, and that's again, that's our culture is fast fixes, quick fixes, and that's just doesn't work. That's never been, it's
Right.
never going to, and it won't. And again, that's the thing. Like a lot of people won't do this. They want to do it.
Hmm.
Everybody wants the good body and everybody wants to be calm in chaos, but you're like, man, it means I have to do some exercises daily. Yeah, that's what it means. So you either do it or you don't, that's
Right.
up to you. Yeah.
Because what happens is the reason they do it every year is they do it for that season. Then that season comes and it's like, oh, it's the holidays. It's time
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
pull out the sweatpants
That's
again.
not the, yeah, right. That's not the steadiness. I mean, and I won't have to, but the way I look at it when I coach people as a
Mhm.
high performance coach is because I keep it real simple. For being or not doing stuff. It's just what we've been conditioned to do and behave as a product of our environment and society, and it's okay. But you have to look, there's four pillars of health where we get all of our health and energy:
Mhm.
physical health, nutritional health, spiritual health, and mental health.
Mhm.
So if your people are out there thinking, they can write down physical health, nutritional health, spiritual health, mental health. And if you're not doing anything kind of daily under a category, like you're not going to have good physical health and physical energy.
Right.
So, like the way I look at it, if you look at your physical health, just try to come up with two or three things that you like to do. It could be taking a walk, doing yoga, working out, I don't know, and try to fill in some things under each pillar that you
Mhm.
kind of try to tap into daily. Because what a lot of people do that don't have this awareness or tools, they go all in on one. They just go all in
Right.
on physical health, right? And I'm joining 5 CrossFit gyms and taking this, and it's so you got all these other gaps. And so it's not about perfection, or it's just about balance and steadiness and consistency. And that may sound super boring, but it's not. You'll have the
That's
life you want. Yeah, that's the way. There is no other way. There's no other 10x Your Life book you're going to read. All that stuff is smoke and mirrors. You have to learn what to do and how to do it, and do it.
well, and that goes to where really you said you have to slow down to remember to do all this
Yeah,
because
and
otherwise you
and
jump into
that's
one and you just go.
right. And that's the key thing I tell everybody right now, because I'm sure there's people on here right now. Man, I got to hurry up and get out of this because I know the meeting coming. They're already starting to spin and time travel. And so
Right.
get a post-it note and put it on your bed, your bathroom mirror that says slow down. Like write the word slow down, put it on your phone, put it on your laptop, you
Mhm.
know, slow down and breathe. That should be your mantra. Slow down and breathe, slow down and breathe, until you start getting better at it. But that's slow down.
Well, that's kind of actually, it goes to another question saying, is there a cheat sheet that you have that we can use to visualize to work on implementing these techniques? I think the slow down is one of them to do that. Is
Yeah.
there anything else, a cheat sheet in order to try to help
Well, I mean,
people
I
keep this
think I
in
told
top of
you we
mind?
can you can send your viewers. So I mean, we have an online academy that's free that people can join that has techniques and tactics in it, and so
Oh,
and
excellent. Hannah, if you
yeah,
could drop that in the chat so people can join that free academy. So I'd suggest y'all sign up, especially if it's as powerful as it was for me to go through. I know I'll be signing up. So
let me
that
see
is
if I
great.
can drop it. So I can drop it
Yeah,
in there
actually,
or
Hannah
not.
dropped it for you.
Oh, did she drop it? I said
Yep.
I emailed it to her. Yeah. So because again, that's what I tell like this is a free thing that we've got. There's no catch, there's no nothing to it, but it's a free online community and academy of people that train mentally. So people that have done our training, there's SEALs and surgeons and real estate agents and cops, all kinds of people. But if you go join that academy under the classroom, it's all micro learning. So there's courses like mindset resets and the
Mhm.
express course. And so it's going to teach you all these tips and techniques and tactics that you can start to use, visualization and stuff. So that's what I always tell people, like, if you want to do it, go there, but you have to do the courses, and they can reach out if you send them my number. We've got other like, guides and workbooks and,
Well,
things
excellent.
that people
Well,
can use.
we'll definitely pass it on. I have one last question, which is what's funny. It's an interesting one, and then we got to go ahead and wrap it up. Be respectful of your time and everyone else's. How would you approach handling boundaries with family and still maintaining a healthy environment?
Yeah.
That
I mean,
that's a different one.
yeah, it's a different one, but what I tell people too is you can't be afraid to piss people off.
Mhm.
If it's being emotionally intelligent, being mentally tough, these things, like depending on who it is, like, I mean, you have to learn how to cut people, places, and things out of your life that are toxic or bad, And I mean, I don't know the family dynamic this person's talking about, but that you have to make some, I mean, that's part of what you have to do. So, um, you can't control the family, right? There's one of
Right.
those sayings like, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you,
Yep.
right? And that's on you. That's not on them.
Mhm.
And so boundaries can be tough, but just not being afraid to communicate. And I tell people all the time, if you want to make everybody happy, go sell ice cream, you know. But my job's not to make everybody happy. My job's to protect my time and attention and my mental health for what I'm doing and my kids. And if it means I have to leave you or cut you out or not spend time around you, then that's what I'll do.
Great advice. Well, y'all, I really almost hate to bring this to a conclusion, but we need to. So, unfortunately, we do have to call it time for today. And if you submit a question we didn't get an answer to, please email me, Corey.knight@silvertonmortgage.com, and we'll respond with Dr. Hickerson's answers. Seth, on behalf of our audience and all of us at Silverton Mortgage, we really appreciate you spending time with us today. Thank you for your beyond valuable insight and tools to help us face the challenges we face, not just in our financial industry, but in our lives,
Right.
And then we'll continue with our speaker series with another event mid-spring with the editor of Scotsman's Guide. So be sure to follow Silverton Mortgage on social media. Also follow Dr. Seth Hickerson, and he's got his connection there on LinkedIn and his sites too, to gain more insight on getting mentally fit. So thank you all and have a great day. And again, thank you so much, Dr. So we really appreciate what you brought
My
with us
pleasure.
today.
Bammo.
Everyone take one now.
Yeah. Take a bunch. All right. See ya.
Thank you.